Hello, my name is Ortez, and welcome to Insure Your Success, where we have real conversations about agency ownership. So, today, what I want to talk about is something that many insurance agencies, FMOs, IMOs, we all struggle with, and that's agent retention. It's a topic I think that's not talked about enough because the turnover is high in our industry. And I want to have a little conversation about that. And so when you decide to get into the recruiting game or become an agency owner, one of the things that you have to know how to do is recruit agents, but also to train staff. And I can remember when I first got into building a team and staff, it was a big eye opener for me. And I struggled with it because I was never taught properly on what I needed to do to build a team as well as train staff. Most of the time we get in this business, whoever recruited you in this business typically tells you to go out there and recruit agents. That's what they tell us, right? Just get out there and invite somebody to the opportunity, plug them into our opportunity meeting, invite them out, and we'll take care of the rest for you. Well, it's not really that simple. So, in this video, we're going to break down some of the biggest psychological reasons why agents quit this business and hopefully give you some solutions that can help you out to help combat this problem here. Because it's a big problem in our industry. In fact, we all probably heard a statistic that 90% of the agents quit in this business. And so I want to give you some data, and this data comes from LIMRA, and LIMRA does an excellent job in conducting a lot of surveys of things that are going on in our industry. So I want to share with you a little data. Also, too, in the description of this video, you can find a report that I did on the psychological barriers of why agents quit this business. So LIMRA conducted a survey and they concluded that 50% of new agents, so a new agent is someone who just got their license, 50% of those agents within the first year quit the business. And that was an alarming statistic to me. Now, out of those 50% who don't quit the business, 80% out of that 50% quit within the first 5 years. And so let me define to you what I mean when I say quit the business, because I have a different perspective on that. And I typically categorize agents based upon these categories. This is just my this helps me, right? So for me, an agent who quit the business, of course, outright just quit the business. Of course, you have those. You also have those who I call sometimers, right? They'll write a policy here, they'll write a policy there. And then you have your part-time agents who may write every month, but they may write 1 to 3 apps a month. I consider that part-time. So when I looked at these statistics, and just based upon my personal experience, I would probably say that 10% of our agency force in the industry as a whole are full-time agents. The remaining 90%, either they quit the business altogether, they are sometime agents where they write a case here or there, and then you have your part-time agents who may write cases every month, 2 to 3 cases every month. And that's important for you to know when you are building an agency. But about 10% of your sales force are going to be full-time agents. So let's talk about some reasons why agents quit. And most of these reasons are really psychological. As I dug deep inside of this topic, why agents actually quit. And it's important for you to know so you can put things in place to help combat that. And no, agents don't quit because they lazy. People don't want to go to work. So that's the first thing that you have to get out your head when you're an agency builder. Yes, it's a small fraction of people who lazy and don't want to go to work. But when you start to say that about everybody, maybe it's your processes and your systems that's not in place that's causing agents not to have a level of success. But like anything, it's easy to play the blame game. So I conducted some research myself on my own team, and I did this over a month, asking questions: what's stopping them from producing? And we was going through a period when sales was kind of slow, and it started to bother me, as it should as an agency owner, on what's prevent agents from selling, right? What's stopping them? And what we concluded, or what I concluded, a lot of these were psychological barriers. Along with the research I've done from other outside sources and talking to other successful agency owners out there who have teams much larger than mine. So I'm going to share with you a few reasons, but what I have uncovered is about 30 plus psychological reasons why agents quit. So one of the reasons that I uncovered, and this is probably pertaining to more of agents who focuses on Medicare, our agency or financial group that I'm a part of and owner of, we primarily focus on the senior market. So we primarily focus on final expense, Medicare Advantage, hospital indemnity, products that kind of cater to the senior market. So one of those reasons why agents struggle to stay in the business is because of the compliance. And compliance is a really big thing in the Medicare world. Just going through the AHIP, the certifications with the carriers, CMS changing the rules of what you could do and what you can't do. Sometimes that'll cause an agent not to do anything at all because there's so much information on what you could do and what you can't do. It could seem overwhelming, which causes a lot of people when they feel overwhelmed not to do anything at all. So if you're in the Medicare space, if that's what you're in, if you're an agency owner or you are attempting to become an agency owner, it's going to be important to put training in place to help combat that. Now, what I have done at our agency, because you could have, it's a lot of compliance rules that CMS puts out with the help of Chat GPT. And of course, um, your upline, if you have an upline that you're working with, most large FMOs have a compliance department to simplify that process to let agents know what they could do and what they can't do. Because let's face it, unless you just like to read, and compliance is definitely a boring subject, you're not about to read 150, 200 pages dealing with compliance. So you want to simplify that by identifying the things that comply or that agents need to be aware of. And when you go to that, when you go through that document, you put it through Chat GPT, you work with your upline's compliance department. It's typically about 10 to 15 things that really affects the everyday uh, process of an agent. It's really not that many. So just simplifying that process and saying, here are the things that you need to be aware of, on a daily basis. Don't overwhelm them, reading a 150 or 200 page document and trying to understand language that most agents don't really understand, written in that legal language, unless you're sitting down with a compliance officer, some type of attorney. So that could cause a lot of agents to kind of shy away or get out the business because of the compliance. So what agents feel is though, look, it's just the rules are always changing, which could cause an agent to feel as though they're changing the rules so much we're not going to be able to sell. They're going to do away with Medicare. All type of thoughts start crossing the agent's mind. So really just kind of breaking down what the agent needs to be concerned of and focusing on the opportunities. The Medicare opportunity is still, in my opinion, one of the best opportunities out there for insurance agents. So the opportunity is massive. Actually, we don't have enough agents to even take advantage of the opportunity. So it's a big opportunity out there for that. Another thing that we have identified that causes agents to get out of the business is confidence, lack of confidence. Most agents believe that they have to know everything before they go out there and sell. And when I first got in this business, that's what I thought. I thought I had to know everything before I went out there to talk to somebody about what I was doing. So I spent countless hours reading everything, rereading everything, um, studying. I guess, my mother was a school teacher, so that was kind of embedded in me to, education, education, education. But I thought I needed to know everything, right? Before I went out there to sell, not knowing I didn't need to know everything and that my majority of my learning my learning will come from by being in the field. That's what I tell agents. You're going to learn more by being in the field. But I thought I needed to know everything. Therefore, my confidence level wasn't as high because I just thought I didn't know enough, which caused me not to go out in the field. Now, yes, certain products, particular products like Medicare, if you're selling high end products like IULs and annuities, does require you to have a certain degree of knowledge before you go out there and talk about these products. So please make sure that you do that. But you don't have to know every single thing, okay? Because the industry is always is evolving. I should say that's the word that I'm looking for. So it's always evolving. So you don't have to know everything. The next thing that I uncovered on this research is a lot of agents come with a W 2 mindset, and sometimes that's hard to break. Most agents, including myself, when we came into this industry, we were working a job. And when you work in a job provides you everything, right? Basically a job has a system. You plug into the system, right? When you go there, they have your desk, they have your computer, or they have your work tools. Pretty much everything is there for you to do the job. You work 8 hours, you work 10 hours, and you expect to be paid. Well, in this business as an independent agent, it doesn't go like that, right? You can work 8 hours and don't make one sale. That means you made no money for that day, but you put in 8 hours. So when you come into this business or when you're recruiting new agents into this business, you have to realize a lot of them come from a W 2 or coming into this business with a W 2 mindset. That's what they're coming into. And so they're coming in expecting that everything is going to be provided for them, that they're going to put in their hours and they're going to come home at the end of the week with a check. And we know it's not like that. So to combat that, it starts at the beginning of the recruiting process where you clearly define the expectations. And also, to how are you recruiting? I see a lot of people out there, they recruit what I call it lifestyle recruiting, right? You could come in this business and you could earn six figures. You could take these extravagant vacations, buy the house you want, and the cars that you want, right? I call that lifestyle recruiting. You could change your situation overnight, you know, those type of catchy words and catchy phrases. But what it does is it doesn't paint a realistic picture about this business. Yes, this business can't afford you to live the lifestyle that you want, but it's not, you're not gonna you're not gonna get that lifestyle overnight. That's just not true. This is a business. And like any business, it takes time to build. So make sure that you are setting realistic expectations. Be real, be upfront. Okay. So that person can mentally prepare themselves about, on the journey that they're about to take. So be upfront with them. Let them know, hey, you know, it may take you 30 days before you see your first check because it's a learning curve, right? It's a learning curve. They may get their first check in 2 weeks, but you got to be realistic because you have to realize, especially if it's someone who never sold insurance before, it is a learning curve first. So set realistic expectations. Another reason why agents may struggle in this business is their environment. Their environment. And when I say environment, yes, I'm talking about the culture of the agency, but also the environment at home. So once again, just sharing from my personal experience. When I decided to go in this business full time, at the time, my daughter's mother, who I was married to, she was used to me bringing home a check every week because I worked a job. But when I decided to quit that job and go into insurance full time, now all of a sudden I wasn't bringing a check home every week. And so you can imagine uh, it posed a change in dynamics in my environment at my home. And this is really important if you are the breadwinner of your home, for you to have a serious conversation with your family once you decide to go in this business full time. They are used to your significant other or your family is relying on that check. And now you're going to enter into this business where it's commission only. And now that check ain't coming in every week. Um, at least not now, because you're trying to learn the business. It could cause you to have a stressful environment at home, which having a stressful environment makes it difficult for you to sell. But also, to having an environment, that's why it's important that your agent has a good culture, a good environment for something for that agent to plug into if they are having some challenges at home. It's important for them to have an environment that they could plug into uh, your agency, something to combat that, right? So it's important for you to take some time out to establish a culture, a good environment, a motivational environment, a uplifting environment, a fun environment to combat some of that struggle. Because talking to most agents typically when they fall out this business, most agencies have good environment and cultures. Yes, there are some out there that don't, but for the most part, most agencies do have a decent environment, a decent culture. But when you really talk to most agents, it's typically their environment at their home. So, as an agency owner, we have to start asking better questions on why people quit and not just default to people lazy, people don't want to work, people don't want to sacrifice. We have to get better at asking questions. Questions like, you know, why did you, what you struggling with? Is it your confidence? Do you feel that you're not being supported? Are you overwhelmed? You know, what's causing you to really quit what I consider one of the greatest opportunities out there? And I let them know you would have never got the insurance license, right? I remember when I first got my insurance license, I was on top of the world. I thought everybody was going to buy insurance from me. And of course, um, I realized real quickly that wasn't the case because all my family and friends told me no. Even though they told me, yes, you get your license, man, we going to support you. But when I got my license, it was crickets. It was silence, but I can say, because I've been in the business for about 25 years, most of my family and friends, I am their agent. So don't get discouraged by that too as well. But as agency owners, we have to ask the right questions. We have to dig a little bit more to find out, why these individuals are quitting the business. We have to stop assuming people just quitting, because they're lazy and they don't want to work. Most of it is psychological. And so what I have done to help you with that, I have included a link in the description of this video where I have identified 30 reasons or so, psychological barriers on why agents quit this business. And I think that we have to have more conversation about that because here's a reality. You could teach an agent all day about product. You could teach an agent all day on how to overcome objections. You could teach an agent how to give a outstanding presentation. You could teach all that. But if they're struggling with any of these psychological barriers, all what you taught them is pointless. All what you taught them is pointless. So I have included something in the description of this video to help you out with that. And if you could do me a favor, make sure you like, subscribe, share this with other agents, other agency owners, or other agents who are inspired to become agency owners. We're going to talk about this conversation a little bit more. But I would also like to hear from you in the comments, especially if you're out there recruiting agents. What are your challenges that you are struggling with to recruit and retain agents? What do you feel why agents are exiting this business, which I consider the greatest opportunity in the world? And also your solutions on what can help with this problem, because I believe this is something that we need to talk about a little bit more. So with that being said, thank you again for watching another episode of Insure Your Success, where we have real conversations about agency ownership. Until next time, I'll see you on the next video.